The Eaton Valeo Clutch Corporation, a joint venture of Eaton Corporation and Valeo, was created for the purpose of marketing Valeo's superior clutch technology in North America. Today we will illustrate two of the many advantages these clutches offer over the current standard as we demonstrate proper assembly and installation of Eaton Valeo single-plate diaphragm spring clutches. This program will illustrate many of the key points contained in the written instructions, but it is not intended to replace those instructions. The EVCC clutch features a single-plate design, replacing the twin-plate system, which makes the unit lighter and easier to install. This is the diaphragm spring pressure plate and cover assembly. The advantage over conventional clutches is that it requires no clutch adjustment. The only adjustment required is to set the proper gap between the release bearing and clutch brake. This is done by making a simple length adjustment to the threaded sleeve of the bearing, which will be demonstrated later in this program. To assemble the release bearing to the pressure plate and cover assembly, simply place the designated number of shims on the collar of the bearing. Then the conical Belleville spring goes on, with the fingers pointing towards the shims. Next, place the pressure plate assembly onto the collar. The fulcrum ring goes on next. One side is rounded and the other side is chamfered to accommodate the snap ring. Place the rounded side down towards the diaphragm fingers. Now position the snap ring on the fulcrum ring, and with a slight push, it all snaps into place. Check to be sure that the snap ring is fully seated. Now your clutch is assembled. EVCC heavy-duty truck clutches fit onto 3 flywheels. The 15.5-inch, commonly used with today's twin-plate clutches, will accept our 16-inch single-plate clutch without modification. The 17-inch pot type is designed for high-torque Cummins engines, and the 17-inch flat type is for other high-torque engines such as Caterpillar, Detroit Diesel, and Mack. We will now show you the correct procedure for installing these 3 clutch designs. Let's begin by installing the 16-inch clutch assembly on the 15.5-inch flywheel. To install the pressure plate, first insert the installation pins, which help align the pressure plate and hold it in place. This is the 16-inch single disc with cerometallic linings and a damped hub. The thick side of the damper will go toward the transmission or pressure plate, with the thin side going towards the flywheel. The next step is to install the alignment tool by inserting it through the disc and into the pilot bearing. This ensures that the disc is centered when we install the cover. Now it's time to install the pressure plate assembly. Using the alignment pins as a guide, make sure the machine surface fits inside the lip of the flywheel. Start the cap screws by hand tightening. It's most important that you use the proper cap screws. Refer to the manual for the correct specifications. The cap screws should be at least grade 5 and should be used with a hardened steel washer. Screws too short may strip or come loose, and screws too long may damage the flywheel or give incomplete clutch seating. Once these are in place, replace the installation pins with cap screws. Always use a torque wrench to tighten the cap screws. Never use an air wrench. Give each screw a half turn, tightening in a crisscrossing manner as you see here. This will assure even clutch seating and smooth clutch operation. Each screw is torqued 40 to 45 foot-pounds. After the cap screws are tightened, these shipping clips will usually fall out. Check to be sure none have fallen into the clutch. A slight tug will remove any remaining clips. Now remove the clutch disc alignment tool. And that completes the installation of the 16-inch clutch. Installation of the 17-inch clutch on the flat flywheel is identical to the installation of the 16-inch clutch. The only difference is that it is attached by 12 cap screws instead of 8. Using this mock-up, we will demonstrate the installation of the 17-inch clutch assembly on the pot-type flywheel and adjustments, just as it would be installed in this typical Class 8 truck. The pot-type flywheel has these dowel pins pressed in 2 of the flanges of the flywheel, which must be aligned with the pressure plate. Once again, we use the removable installation pins as a guide. The installation of the friction disc is the same as the 16-inch assembly. Carefully place the pressure plate assembly onto the flywheel, making sure it is aligned with the dowel pins. Keep in mind you must use the correct cap screws. Also, notice the crisscross tightening pattern. Don't forget to remove the shipping clips and alignment tool, just as you did with the 16-inch clutch. Place the clutch brake onto the input shaft, leaving it in front of the yoke. Be sure the transmission is aligned with the bore of the bearing, and be careful not to move the bearing off-center. Here we are checking the clearance between the release bearing and the clutch brake with the external clutch linkage removed. It should be adjusted to obtain a half-inch gap. Since the release bearing is right-hand threaded, you decrease the clearance by threading out, counterclockwise, and increase it by threading in, clockwise. Then tighten the locking ring against the collar to lock it in place using 2 spanner wrenches. Next, reconnect your linkage and check to be sure you have correct clutch pedal free play as recommended by the truck maker. Usually, it's 1.5 inches. If the gap is not correct, readjust the linkage as recommended by the vehicle manufacturer. This is usually done by adjusting a threaded rod or a free play adjuster. Now, you're ready to roll. There is one last step that is very important. Every new clutch must go through a break-in procedure. This consists of driving the truck 5 or 10 miles, making frequent stop-start cycles. When starting the truck, it should be in a gear high enough to put a good working load on the clutch without being abusive. You want to bed in the clutch to get full contact on all the friction surfaces. Periodically, an in-service adjustment may be necessary to maintain the half-inch gap between the release bearing and the clutch brake. This is necessary when the clutch pedal free play drops to a half-inch or when the clutch brake stops working. Follow the same adjustment procedure as before. Set the half-inch gap, check free play, and then recheck the half-inch adjustment. This has been a brief overview of assembly and installation procedures for Eaton Valeo clutches. This presentation is not intended to replace our written instructions, but to serve as a demonstration of several key procedures that show how the unique and simple design of the Eaton Valeo clutch results in easier installation and service. Should you ever need service in the field, you can call on our exclusive Eaton Road Ranger service. We will come to you anywhere in North America for assistance with speccing, parts expediting, and on-the-spot troubleshooting. For more information, you can contact an Eaton Road Ranger sales and service office at 1-800-TCM-HELP. In Canada, call 1-800-567-2145. Your call will be routed to the office nearest you. Or you can contact any of the regional offices at these local phone numbers.